On the way to the Warhol chestnut tree, I'm passing by the garden anyways, so I want to show you something interesting and relevant to the story of the American chestnut. What we're seeing here is part of the tomatillo garden. And as you can see, there's a beautiful yellow ripe tomatillo there, but that's not the actual tomatillo that's yellow, that's the wrapper that they grow in. But when the wrapper turns color, that means that what's inside is done too. And there's what's inside. A beautiful, ripe, yellow tomatillo. This is what you generally find, unless you come to Tommy's place. I like to tinker with crossing things, and I've done the same with the tomatillos. As you can see here, some of these are starting to break open, which they do sometimes when they outgrow their wrapper. And look at the color of what's inside. Those are purple tomatillos. The reason that I'm showing you that is because it was so easy for me to create this. It was simply created by the yellow tomatillos holding hands underground with the roots of a purple potato. I'll come back to this later on in the video. Now here we are at the Warhol chestnut tree, and as you can see, it is still chained to that poor American beech that's trying to keep it straight, and it's doing a great job. The poor American beech that's been helping the Warhol chestnut tree stand straight, unfortunately is succumbing to the problems that are killing the American beeches around here. But the good news is it's actually accomplished its task. This is going to be the last year that I have the Warhol chestnut chained to this tree, which will probably be dead by this time next year anyways. The Warhol chestnut is now so big and healthy, and its trunk is so strong that there's no more need for support. Looking closely at the American beech, we can see that new branches that are just sprouting out are dying immediately. This tree is in big trouble. Taking a closer look, we can see that these little dots are actually fungus that is starting to grow. That means that this tree is basically dead. Taking a much closer view of the skin of the tree, we can see very clearly that those white dots are indeed little tiny mushrooms growing from a dead tree. This tree is getting very large, and it's starting to make a lot of growth in all directions. And the top is so bushy and so beautiful, and there's something very special for us to see way up at the top. Those are chestnuts. We can see two burrs way up at the top there in this particular shot. It's hard for me to get good shots of them because the tree is so bushy, and the angle to be able to get a good shot is just not available for most of them. Unfortunately, the odds are that these are all going to be sterile. They're kind of small, as you can see, even though this was taken early in the season. But this is a great sign. This is the first time that this tree is actually producing burrs. Last year it produced its first ever catkins, and now here we are. Unfortunately, this tree is very far from the Miracle Sisters tree, so it's very unlikely that there's going to be any cross-pollination, unless there's some incredibly intrepid pollinator that's going to make the journey all the way from one to the other. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that. But someday, the other small chestnut trees that I've planted around it are going to be large enough that they will produce their own burrs, and we'll have some cross-pollination and hopefully some viable chestnuts to keep this going, to spread these chestnut trees through the forest and beyond. Now here we are at the Miracle Sisters chestnut. And as you can see, this is just such a beautiful tree. Joined up tightly with that beautiful red oak, the sisters. And this gets us back to what I was talking about with the tomatillos. These trees are not only holding hands underground with their roots, but they're actually joined at the hip, as it were, where they come out of the ground. This is essentially one tree. Just happens to be half red oak and half American chestnut. Here we can see some of the beautiful big burrs that are growing from the American chestnut half of this beautiful tree. These two trees are one. They are sharing genes with each other. doing exactly the same thing that happened with that purple tomatillo with the purple potato. Very far overhead, we can see that the large clump in the front is American chestnut, complete with some beautiful big burrs there, and far, far above behind is the red oak. This is all one tree. Zooming out a little bit, we can see more of the American chestnut. And look at all of those burrs. Hopefully I'm going to be able to gather more than my usual handful to have many more American chestnuts to plant next year. The joy of seeing those burrs for the first time on the Warhol chestnut filled me with such joy and such hope for the future. Someday, this forest is going to be home to so many American chestnuts, all crossing with each other, hopefully one day, to solve the riddle of the chestnut blight.